In 1970, something remarkable was happening inside every grocery store across America, something that feels almost impossible today. A family of 4 could walk through the front doors, fill an entire shopping cart with everything they needed for a full week: milk, bread, eggs, meat, vegetables, coffee, cereal, snacks, and walk back out having spent less than what a single fast food meal costs in 2025. It sounds unreal. It sounds exaggerated. But every number you're about to hear is real, printed on grocery receipts that still exist today. And when you see these prices, they won't just shock you. They might even make you a little angry. So let's go back. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine it's early Saturday morning in 1970. The sun is soft, the air is cooler, and the world feels slower. You push open the heavy glass doors of your local A&P or Safeway. There's no beeping, no self-checkout kiosks, no digital screens, just warm yellow lights, long wooden aisles, and a faint smell of coffee from the shelf where Folgers cans are stacked 6 high. Every price is stamped onto each can, box, and carton. And when you roll your cart toward the checkout, the cashier punches every single number into the register by hand, one at a time. Mechanical keys clicking, paper receipt printing. Simple, predictable, human. Now here's where this becomes interesting. The average American worker in 1970 earned about $6,000 per year. That breaks down to roughly $119 per week. And out of that $119 paycheck, families spent around $30 to $35 on groceries for the entire week. And with that $30, they weren't buying junk. They weren't buying air-filled snack bags or tiny cereal boxes pretending to be family size. They bought real food enough to feed the whole family, often with leftovers. Today, the average American family spends between $250 and $300 per week on groceries, sometimes more. And even though the percentage of income is similar, the actual amount of groceries those dollars buy today feels painfully small. You walk out with 3 bags and wonder where your money went. But in 1970, you walked out with a cart so full, you needed help loading it into the car. Let's start with one of the most essential items: milk. In 1970, a gallon of whole milk cost just 62 cents. Yes, 62 cents. Today, that same gallon averages around $4.29, sometimes more depending on the state. That's almost a 600% increase. But here's something funny: people in 1970 actually complained about milk being expensive. Some cities even had small protests because dairy farmers wanted to raise the price by 5 cents. Imagine protesting milk going from 62 to 67 cents. Today we watch prices jump 50 cents in a week and barely react. Do you remember the milkman? In many neighborhoods during the early 70s, glass bottles clinked quietly on porches early in the morning. Kids ran out to bring them inside. That moment, cold bottle in hand, condensation on the glass, metal cap popping off, something many people today never experienced. Now, let's talk about bread. A loaf of Wonder Bread cost 24 cents. 24. That same loaf today is well over $3. And here's the part most people don't know. That 24-cent loaf was bigger. In 1970, standard bread loaves weighed 24 ounces. Today, most loaves are 20 ounces or even less. So yes, you're paying more for less, and companies are hoping you don't notice. Back in 1970, a stay-at-home mom could easily buy 10 loaves of bread for $2.40. That amount isn't enough to buy even one loaf in most grocery stores. Next up, eggs. In 1970, a dozen eggs cost 45 cents. Today, they average between $3 and $5. Eggs have always been unpredictable, but 45 cents was stable, normal, expected. And a lot of families bought eggs directly from local farms. Almost every neighborhood had someone's aunt, someone's grandpa, someone's neighbor who kept chickens. Fresh eggs in brown cartons sitting on the kitchen counter. No barcode, no expiration label. Just real eggs that tasted different. Ground beef, the foundation of American weeknight dinners, was 58 cents per pound. Today, it's over $5.60. In 1970, steak was expensive and considered a treat, but ground beef? That was the affordable dinner meat. Families used it for everything: spaghetti, chili, meatloaf, casseroles, tacos. You could buy 3 or 4 pounds for less than $2.50. Today, the budget meat isn't budget at all. Coffee, too, tells a story. A 1-pound can of Folgers costs just 91 cents. Today, that same pound is around $8.50, and that's the regular coffee, not the fancy stuff. Back then, every household had a percolator. The sound of bubbling coffee and the smell filling the kitchen each morning was just part of life. For 91 cents, you had enough coffee for 2 to 3 weeks. Today, 91 cents doesn't even buy you a sip of Starbucks. Cereal may be the most dramatic example. A box of Kellogg's Corn Flakes in 1970 cost 33 cents. Today, that same box smaller, lighter, thinner's around $4.79. I can remember, kids ate cereal every morning. Parents bought multiple boxes each week. 3 or 4 boxes used to cost less than $1.50 total. Today, you can spend $20 in the cereal aisle without even noticing. A 5-pound bag of sugar was only 59 cents. Today, that same bag costs over $4. And the old sugar bags, they felt heavy, thick paper packaging, the weight in your hands. Sugar was essential for baking, iced tea, lemonade, holiday desserts, and preserving fruits during the summer. It lasted weeks. Even soda was cheap. A 6-pack of Coca-Cola in glass bottles cost 59 cents. Today, it's around $6.49. But you also paid a bottle deposit 2 cents per bottle. Kids collected empty bottles from neighbors and traded them in for pocket money. Soda was a treat. Families didn't drink it daily. It was for Friday nights, picnics, or when guests came over. Let's build a real 1970 grocery cart using real prices. Imagine this: 1 gallon of milk, 2 loaves of bread, 1 dozen eggs, 3 pounds of ground beef, 1 pound of coffee, 2 boxes of cereal, a 5-pound bag of sugar, a 6-pack of Coca-Cola, 1 pound of butter, 10 pounds of potatoes, 6 cans of vegetables, a whole chicken. All of that, everything I just listed, came to around $10. Today, that same cart costs over $112. That's an increase of more than 1,000%. Your parents and grandparents weren't wrong when they said everything was cheaper back then. They weren't exaggerating. They were living it. Now, let's talk about why this happened. First, inflation. Prices naturally rise over decades. The Federal Reserve actually targets a certain amount of annual inflation. But inflation doesn't explain everything. Second, wages. The average salary in 1970 was around $6,000, adjusted for inflation. That equals about $49,000 today, and many people do earn around that. But here's the problem. Other major expenses, housing, healthcare, college tuition, rose far faster than inflation or wages did. So families feel squeezed. Third, shrinkflation. Companies shrink their products instead of raising prices. Smaller cereal boxes, thinner bread loaves, lighter coffee cans. You pay the same more, but get less. It's invisible inflation. Fourth, supply chains. In 1970, most food came from nearby farms. Today, ingredients travel thousands of miles, passing through multiple companies. Every middleman adds cost. Let's adjust some 1970 prices for inflation to get a fair comparison. Surprisingly, some foods today are actually cheaper after adjusting for inflation. 62-cent gallon of milk in 1970 equals around $4.70 today. And milk currently averages around $4.29. So in inflation-adjusted terms, milk is slightly cheaper today. Also come close to inflation-adjusted pricing. Coffee, too, is not as far off as people think, but bread. Bread is about 20% more expensive today, even after inflation. Ground beef is around 15% more expensive. Cereal is dramatically more expensive when adjusted for inflation and when accounting for shrinkflation. So here's the truth. Some groceries kept pace with inflation, but many genuinely got more expensive. And many others shrank while pretending to stay the same. But the biggest change isn't mathematically emotional. In 1970, $10 felt powerful. It filled your cart. It made you feel in control. Today, $100 feels like a struggle. You walk out with 2 or 3 bags and wonder how your wallet emptied so fast. Imagine the feeling of pulling a crisp $20 bill from your pocket in 1970. That single bill could buy enough groceries to feed a family for several days, plus leave a little extra for treats. That $20 bill had weight. It had dignity. It had power. Today, that same $20 bill barely covers a loaf of bread, a carton of eggs, and maybe a snack. And maybe that's the real reason nostalgia hit so hard, not because the world was perfect, but because everyday life felt more affordable, more predictable, and more balanced. Families cooked at home more often. Kids grew up eating real food. Grocery stores were smaller, simpler, and more community-based. People recognized cashiers by name. Everyone felt more connected. So that's what grocery shopping in 1970 looked like. A world where $20 filled your cart, where food came in real sizes, where packaging wasn't sneaky, and where families could rely on a simple weekly routine that didn't drain their wallets. Now I want to hear from you. What do you remember about grocery shopping in the 70s? What did your family buy every week? What prices shocked you the most? And what do you miss most about that era of shopping? Share your stories in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to see what grocery prices looked like in the 1980s, I've got a video coming very soon. 1985 has some of the biggest price surprises you've ever seen. Thanks for taking this trip down memory lane prices. And I'll see you in the next one.